Meanwhile, tonight, a young man who was arrested when he was only 13 years old in Saudi Arabia may be put to death in that country. His crime, criticizing the royal family and taking part in street protests, including one where he's seen with friends riding his bicycle, what boys do when they're that young. The government says some of his, quote, crimes date back to when he was just 10 years old, which is one of the reasons that Amnesty International is now trying to stop this execution at all costs. Joining us now is a political expert who happens to be the past Democratic chairman of Florida. Mitch Ceasar joins us now from the Miami Bureau. You know, I'm just thinking, stuff like this that the Saudis seem to do they do it because they know they're so all-powerful that they can get away with it and we're not going to do anything to them?
Well, they do it because they can. And most specifically, as you said, he began at 10 years old. Then they locked him up at 14. They've held this kid since that point. He's 18 now. So I think they've made the decision now they can execute him because he's 18. If you want a really glaring statistic, on one day over there, they executed 37 people, usually, I believe, by beheading, and 4 of those were juveniles. The reason they can get away with it, in part, is because of the United States. Trump has shown an unbelievable affinity for dictators. He loves the Saudi Arabians. He loves selling the missiles. He loves when they go to his hotels and spend money, which is a different investigation. And therefore, there's no outcry from the biggest, the biggest person on the block, the United States.
Nobody would disagree with you that since Trump has been in office, he has had an affinity for for strong men, as we used to call them back in the Manuel Noriega days, right? Panamanian strongman Manuel Noriega. But it's not just Trump. If it were Trump, we would say, okay, at some point we're going to have a different president. It seems to me, Mitch, that it doesn't matter whether the president has a D or an R in front of their name. When it comes to certain countries, we do let them get away with more than we do other countries. And Saudi Arabia is the perfect example of that, isn't it?
For sure. As I said, the Republican senators who never usually ever disagree with Trump are disagreeing about the jet and arms sales to Saudi Arabia. And as I said, they're usually very silent. I think, going to your point, I think the reason we do it is for 2 reasons. One is it may be strategic reasons of why and the geography where they are, but it's also a shortcut approach. If we deal with democracies, it has to go through their legislature, different chains. Here it goes through one person. It's quick, it's easy. And of course, we switch dictators as often as we change stocks often. So it's not a good precedent for us historically, but it is a shortcut, whether it serves American interests or sets a stage for us to have the bright light around us as the beacon of hope. Not so much.
But you've been around these guys. You come from the political world, so you've been around Republicans and Democrats and everybody both in Congress and in the Senate. And a lot of them respond to power and especially money. Very few countries in the world have more money and or more power than Saudi Arabia. Now, our politics should not be guided in any way by power or money, but it is, isn't it? It really is.
Well, I'm not going to shock you by saying I'm going to hearken back to the incumbent president, Republican Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And specifically, they love spending excess amounts of money as hotels. He's a transactional president. I don't believe he has any particular philosophy for domestic or foreign policy. And he says, these guys have a lot of money. They have a lot of power. That impresses me. I like parades. I want to spend a lot of money in July 4th parade here. I think for this president and his lack of political experience in this case is a bad thing. I did not see the same behavior by Barack Obama. I just did not.
But I could, and you know darn well, show you the record of Jimmy Carter and of Bill Clinton and of Barack Obama when it comes to the royal family. And pardon me for saying this on camera, but there was butt kissing there just as there is today. We've never wavered from doing that as far as our foreign policy with that country, whether it's a Democrat or a Republican. And I'll give you the last word, Mitch Ceasar.
I don't see it so much with Barack Obama, but what I do see is all the suspicions that have come out about the Saudis after 9/11, and specifically a flight that gave them safe travel from Florida, I believe the Tampa-St. Pete area, out right before 9/11. So
yeah,
plenty of questions remain.
And I just will say, as a final point, the big deal right now is Yemen. Yemen looks like a horrible, horrible war where lots of innocent children are dying, and I think that's the big reason that some good people in Congress are looking at it and saying this has to stop. Mitch, as usual, good job. Thank you for being on. Enjoyed the conversation. I'm Rick Sanchez. You found us on YouTube, and that's awesome. But you know what? I'm also live every night at 7 and 8 p.m. Eastern on DirecTV and Dish and cable and satellite, the RT app, and Pluto TV. I'll see you there.